Okay, fantastic. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to DevRel Asia 2020. I'm very excited to be a part of this event. My name is Kushlani, and I will be talking to you today about something that's very close to my heart, which is developer marketing and how to build marketing campaigns that developers will really fall in love with. So moving right along, that's me. I've been a tech marketer for the past 11 years, and right now I am a marketing consultant. I was with a company called WSO2. I'm sure many of you would have heard of it. I'm from Sri Lanka. The picture that you can see is actually from one of our beautiful beaches back home in Sri Lanka. I encourage all of you to visit Sri Lanka once everything settles down. You won't regret it. And when I'm not, busy with a marketing campaign or getting some content out, I am very passionate about fitness and how I unwind after a particularly difficult day or a difficult week is I read some really good crime fiction that, kind of makes me forget everything. So getting started, here are some of the points for today's session that I'll be covering. I'll speak a little bit about understanding the developer, what you need to build a successful developer marketing campaign, and how you can really win at developer marketing. So first up, I'd like to take a little bit of time to speak about who the developer is, and why I'm talking about this here is because a lot of times when we get started on a campaign, especially if you're not a developer and you're developing a campaign for them, you get a little worried or a little anxious, wondering how am I supposed to resonate with the developer when I'm not a developer myself. But what I would like to say is, if you look at a typical developer, there are people who fix complex problems. They spend a lot of time online. They work on multiple projects at the same time. So in reality, they are really no different to anyone else. They're just like you and me, because if I ask the audience, how many of you do the first 3 bullet points that you see on your screen, I'm sure all of you would say yes, just like me. So I'm a marketer, obviously. I'm not a developer, but what I'm trying to emphasize here is that developers are just like all of us. They have the same set of needs. They have the same set of routine, and we don't need to think of them as a separate entity when you develop a marketing campaign. So what I figured was, this may be the case, we may be like developers and we all might have similar interests and similar patterns that we go about in our day-to-day. But when it comes to marketing, developers might have a certain set of expectations in terms of what they want from a marketing message or from a marketing campaign. So in order to get some insight, what I did was I conducted a poll on both Twitter and LinkedIn with the developer community, and I asked them, when you're evaluating a new product or tool, what are the things that you look for the most? So as you can see here, obviously the biggest or the highest response rate was towards benefits to the project. So yes, obviously you're going to look at product features, you're going to want to know customer success stories and a whole bunch of things, but at the end of the day, what you want to know is how is it going to help your project become better. And if you can look at some of the comments given by people, it was very interesting because everything ultimately boiled down to factors like, how does it make my life easier? How does it make my project better? What is the user experience like? Again, user experience means, how am I going to be able to do my task better than I did before? So at the end of the day, it all boils down to how it benefits you as a person, how it benefits your team, and overall how you can really improve the productivity of that project. So what I kind of analyzed from this survey and from some of the other conversations and from my experiences as well is that in developer marketing, or in any form of marketing, really, there are 2 sets of things. Obviously, the first set of things that you can see on the left hand side of my screen are the things that they know. So everybody knows a product's capabilities. They know what you might stand for as a brand. They know that your product is easy to implement. They know that there's there's support available. All of these are known things, and these can easily be derived by either looking at your website or maybe reading a product white paper or watching a webinar. But as a developer, what you would really appreciate is not product capabilities. It's how it's going to help make the developer's life easier. They know the brand values, but they are going to appreciate how those brand values have translated in making other developers do their projects or complete their tasks better. They know it's easy to implement, okay, great, but what is the user experience like? How am I going to have a better user experience than I did before as a result of using your product? And they know that there is support available, but what they appreciate is how can I get the support? Where can I get the support? Is it 24/7? Is there a Slack channel that I can use? And basically, getting into the nitty-gritties once again of not what is available in a product or a service or a platform, but how it makes a developer's life better. So having said that, what I believe really is developer marketing is not just one thing. It's a combination of things, and it's not just about making the developer community aware of your product or your service. You have to think about developer relations, because relationships is very important. You have to have actual conversations in your marketing efforts with developers, and I'll go on to that a little bit later in my presentation. It's very important engagement, obviously, because you have to be able to have mechanisms in which you can get feedback about the products or services that you are marketing. And developer empowerment. Again, if the end goal of your product or your service is to make the developers' lives easier, they have to feel empowered, obviously, because that's a large part of how it helps them do something better than the way they used to do it. So that, to me, in a nutshell, is developer marketing. Again, not rocket science, just that you have to consider a couple of key things when you set about your goals for developer marketing. So next, now that we've seen what the community wants, what are the key components that go into developer marketing, I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about how you can actually succeed at developer marketing. So to me, there are three key components that you have to think about when you set about on a developer marketing campaign. The first thing, obviously, is education, because they have to be able to know not just about how the product makes your life easier, but educate them on the kind of problem that they're trying to solve. Maybe there's a bigger problem that they haven't yet realized. So education is very important in any developer marketing campaign, and one of the best ways to educate is through good content. And content, since it's consumed in so many different forms, everything from articles to screencasts to white papers to webinars, you need to always think about the right kind of content that you need to provide your developer community with. So next, obviously, leading on to it is your community. So you are going to be speaking to your community through your marketing campaign. And throughout the marketing campaign, you have to always think about empowerment, because empowerment is what is going to differentiate what your product does between what another product does. Because if you set aside a very non-engaging marketing campaign, then your community is not going to feel empowered. So while you get the message out across the kind of product or service that you are marketing, you have to make sure that the community feels empowered through the marketing campaign, and that they will feel empowered as a result of using that product or service. And finally, when you have a good community, a community who feels empowered, you're going to end up with champions. So you're not going to need to do anything to get the champions to go out and say, hey, this is a really great product. You should be using it. It's purely through their experiences that they realize that, okay, this is a really great product, and I should be telling the rest of my community about it. So you get endorsements without even having to think about it too much. And when you think of champions, you don't only need to think of the champions who are outside of your organization. Some of the best champions that you can think of or that you can create come from within your organization. So if you have developers who are willing to go out there and advocate, because they are the people building the products as well. So it's a developer talking to a developer, which is much better than a marketing team alone coming up with a campaign. So get your developers as involved as possible when you create developer marketing campaigns. Especially think about the champions aspect of it, because these endorsements can go a very long way. So then going back to some of the basics, obviously developer marketing means you still need to follow some of the basics. So you need to have a marketing framework for any developer marketing campaign. You need to know what your goals are, whether you're trying to get downloads of a product, whether you're trying to get signups. So you need to have goals in mind, whether it's an awareness building campaign, whether it's a hackathon to try out a new feature, but whatever it is, goals are very important. Then you need to also focus on the message. And when you think of the message, remember all of the previous components I spoke about, like the community aspect, the aspect of how it makes their life better, how they can do something faster, how they can, achieve the bigger goal of the project better than they would have. So think of the message when you come up with a developer marketing campaign, because developers, they want to know these messages without a lot of fluff. That's why I use the word fluff in the title of my presentation as well, because sometimes as marketers we get a little carried away and we might throw in buzzwords like high powered or low maintenance or simple implementation. But within all of that, what the developers really want to know is, okay, how is it going to make things better for me? So message is very, very important. Next, channels, again, depending on the community that you're talking to, you have to figure out where you're going to invest your time and even some of your budget. So are you going to go all out with channels like Twitter? Are you going to invest in Slack? Are you going to do a content series on YouTube? Are you going to run a hackathon? So channels are important depending on the type of developer community that you're talking to. And rewards. Now, this is interesting, but I put rewards here because I feel like many developer marketing campaigns are associated with some form of reward. And we've done this in the past in my time at my previous organization as well, where there's always a reward associated. It could be anything from swag or merchandise to a free copy of a book written by an author in your company. But rewards go a long way, and it's also great for social presence as well, because the word really gets out. If you had held a contest, for example, and you win a reward, it's a great way to create some buzz around that campaign. Next is something, again, that's very crucial, and this is crucial. Why? Because especially if you're someone like me, if you are marketing to developers and you're kind of struggling to come up with this message, because it's easy in theory, but when you put it into practice, it's quite difficult to get this message down just right. So you don't need to look too far, because obviously if you're marketing to developers, that means those developers sit within your organization as well. So the easiest and the best way to get about this is build a focus group of the target audience from your organization itself. If you have 10 developers, get maybe 5 of them together and say, hey, I'm designing this campaign. Show them the messages, tell them the channels, and just ask them, would you read this? Would you click on this link? Would you want to sign up for a trial like this? Because if your audience is sitting in the same room, well, not now, but if they're sitting in the same room with you, then that's the best source of intel that you can get for your campaigns. So build a focus group of your target audience and listen to them. Don't make the focus group for the, just for protocol. Listen to them. Next, there is a whole bunch of tools and services that you can use for 2 things. One is you can use them to understand what developers want. Next, you can use it to give them what they want through those tools and services as well. Because if you are going to embark on a developer marketing campaign, you have to know where these developers reside, where they spend most of their time, how they consume their content. Are they going to watch a 2-minute video, or are they going to read an article which is going to take them 5 minutes? So you have to really be able to get into the mindset of the developer, and that's why tools and services are very, very important. So in order to, like I was saying, in order to get into this mindset and really figure out who is this developer, what do they like, what are they going to have more attraction towards, you need to live the world of the developer, and you need to be able to understand what they want. And one of the best ways to do that is gaining intelligence through listening. Now, listening, I've spoken about this in other presentations, and I tweet about this quite often as well. I think listening is a massively important skill for a marketer, because there is so much happening out there. If you don't listen to your audience, if you don't listen to your competitors, if you don't listen to the community, most importantly, you're not going to know the right kind of ways to approach the community and the right kind of conversations to have. So in terms of listening, one of the best ways you can do it is through engagement platforms, and one of them is Weaver. As you can see, I have them up on my screen here. So tools like Weaver allow you to aggregate information from various sources. Maybe it's Slack, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's from a content syndication engine. And as a marketer, you have so much power, because you can sit there and open up your screen, and you'll be able to see a collated view of all of these conversations without having to go to multiple channels and figure out where these conversations are going. So you can feed in hashtags, you can feed in trending topics, and you become much more empowered yourself. So in order to empower a community, you have to be empowered yourself as well. So you just get to know inside out about what the community is talking and where they're talking about. So this kind of information really helps you in promoting, in planning your campaign, both from a content perspective, what should you be writing about, and from the perspective of where you should be promoting that content. The other thing, again, it's an obvious one, but sometimes might not get as much traction as it should, is social engagement. So I have two examples here from WSO2 where I used to work before. And if you can see the kind of content that is promoted on these community channels. So these channels are created specifically for community, and they don't have as much marketing material on them. So that's another thing you might want to consider. If you want to carry out your community or your developer marketing separately, you might want to branch off a little bit from your corporate marketing channels. So as you can see, these are very community-driven messages. It's about, submitting for Hacktoberfest. It's about whether you would like to contribute to the code of the product. So it's very, it has been thought out in a way that developers would like it and they would want to engage as a result. So it doesn't have any of the fluff that I mentioned, but it's written in a simple way that developers would feel like engaging. And this is, again, an example where we used Slack for an event, which was fantastic because while the event was going on, you could really engage through Slack, and we were able to have conversations with the community via Slack itself. So, for example, if you are thinking of running an event, maybe it's a lengthy webinar series or even like a summit of sorts, having channels like Slack can really help you engage, because developers are anyway on channels like Slack, and they will be having conversations there, and then you're able to, so as you can see in the example that I put here, they're looking for more support in terms of getting a certification, which is great, because tools like certification are fantastic if you want to grow your community, because you really get more users and more advocates as a result of being certified in using and developing your products. So Slack is a great way to keep conversations going even after an event. Sometimes we find that these Slack channels are active. So it's really great, and it doesn't require too much effort from the part of the developer. They can, listen to the event, and then if they have a question, they can just jump on Slack and talk about it. Another key aspect, again, if you remember at the beginning of my presentation, I spoke about content and how important it is. So once again here, content syndication is important. Again, as a developer community, there's a lot of content that's consumed, again, which makes it very tricky, because the more content out there, the better you have to plan it, the more effort you have to put into creating content. So I have a couple of examples here, all organizations I've engaged with in my time before. Companies like DZone, the News Stack, they have very developer-centric communities. So if you have messages or campaigns that you're running for your developer community, think about it in both forms. It can be organic, obviously, because you can submit articles to some of these publications and they will have it up. And from an SEO value, it's fantastic, because these are well-ranked sites. And also, if you want to embark in more content syndication, sponsored efforts, these are some great tools that will help as well. Then there's InfoQ2. They have certain subcategories like microservices, Kubernetes, service-oriented architecture. So if you're in any of those areas, you can get like a dedicated page where you can submit your content and really engage with the developer community. Then finally, in terms of some of the tools and channels that you can use, YouTube is, again, a fantastic way, again, from an SEO standpoint, from a content standpoint. If you are thinking of running, let's say, a much longer term developer campaign that, let's say, escalates into maybe 6 months to 1 year, consider creating good video content. Consider even creating a channel. This example I have here, again, is from the company I used to work for, and they have a channel called API Live, which is purely targeted to having community conversations. So they have community calls, I believe, once every month. You just get the community coming in, they send their questions in advance, and you just get to have a really good conversation, not about the product, or you're not trying to sell it, or you're not trying to say how fantastic it is compared to the other products, but you're just talking about the technology, how it's helping businesses in different industries, and you're just making it better for the community to use. And these community calls are a great way to get even more traction towards some of your other products, because these, now the two products that I have here are API management and identity server, which are two products that are most often used together. So it's a great way, thinking from a marketing perspective, obviously after you figured out the community angle, it's a great way for your brand as well, because then your brand gets positioned as being more concerned than just making sales, but it's also, again, about that real community empowerment angle I was talking about earlier. So in summary, what I would like to say is, if you are someone like me and many of the other marketers out there who are in technology, you will have to develop a campaign. You will have to do a marketing campaign for developers at some point in your career, and it will, the need for it will only increase. So just 4 points I think which are important is, first thing, think outside the box. A typical marketing campaign will not work here. You have to be very careful about the words, the terminology, the channels you use. So I would encourage you to try and still think like a marketer. Don't think like anything else, but try to live the life of the developer by subscribing to some of the content I showed earlier, going on those channels, trying to get involved in those conversations. That will really help you. And always get feedback, because feedback is the best way you can fine-tune your campaign so that it meets its goals. And talk to your developers. First thing, before you do anything, at the point of discussing the idea of a marketing campaign, get your own developers involved. They are a wealth of information in terms of how you can do a better job. And be consistent. again, this is a principle that applies to any marketing campaign. Don't run something for a month and stop it. Make sure that you are doing it consistently, so that your message is spread across a longer period of time, and there'll be more consumption of your content, or whatever that you're trying to put out there. So be consistent. Don't develop very short-term campaigns. Have a longer-term campaign with you can have staggered goals, that's fine, but plan for a longer campaign. And the final point is to develop a vision for advocacy, because at the end of the day, what we are all trying to do with these efforts is we're trying to build advocates. We're trying to build advocates for our products, for our brands, and ultimately, for what we believe in. So in order to build advocates, and in order for them to believe in what you believe, you have to have a vision for it. And again, it ties back to consistency, because you can't build advocacy in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. It has to be a consistent process, and it has to always run in the back of the wheel of any campaign that you're running. That advocacy is ultimately what you're trying to go for. So that's about it from me. I think I am right on time, which is great. But yeah, I mean, I hope you've enjoyed the session. I had a lot of fun preparing for it, because I got to do research. I got to talk with members of the developer community, and it was great, because I got to put some of my own learnings into practice as well. So do stay connected. I'd love to hear your feedback. My email, my Twitter handle, and my LinkedIn is all there on the screen, as you can see. And yeah, thank you so much for joining. Stay safe wherever you are, and I hope you do stay in touch, and enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kushlani. Your talk is very useful.
Thank you.
Good framework. So time is up. So
yes.
If your audiences have questions, please tweet to Kushlani or hashtag DevRel82. Please tweet. Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Kushlani, again.
Thank you very much, Yasinora.